Let's make sure I'm in there. Yep. Okay. All right.
You're probably gonna end the line and start again.
Here we go. Okay. We're live.
Desperation's sticky cologne, Donnie.
We got it. We're good. We're live.
I do like how every podcast starts with me sitting here awkwardly, watching you.
Well, when we can afford a producer to do all this stuff, then yeah.
You didn't pay your daughter? Your daughter's our producer today. You didn't pay her?
And she literally hiding under the desk over there. She's not even sitting in there. Yeah. Here we are. Spring break. So daddy daycare over here.
Man, what a great movie.
Yeah, what a good movie. Really was. Really was.
Underrated.
Yeah,
Underrated.
I agree. And we yep.
We'll do
So-
that. Don't be awkward over
Go ahead and just sit down over there in the chair.
There is an actual person off camera. So this time when I asked Jamie, aka Bella, to look something up, she still won't look it up.
Look it up. We are live here though. Hey, we are on time. High five on that one.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yes. With daylight savings time and everything.
With everything.
Yeah. God, man.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I know I saw your post about that and I concur.
What are we doing?
What are we doing?
What are we doing? Why are we still? I don't know why it hit me. I guess why it hit me so hard this year was not just the kids. Was that I was teaching a course, and so I'm very tired when I teach these courses. I teach 2-day weekend courses.
So halfway through your weekend.
Yes, yeah. So like we finish at 6:30 at night on Saturday, and then we start because we give people kind of time to like ease into it. We don't start till like 10 on Saturdays, and then on Sundays we start at 8 a.m., which is normally a little
7 a.m.
Right, exactly. So basically, I was back in the gym that I was teaching in 12 hours later, which is great. It was great.
Yeah.
And then I came home. So I'm already jet lagged. Then I come home, and
Fire it up at Monday morning.
Right, and the kids are like, they don't know what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
And so they're just like, it's 9 o'clock at night, and they're like, I'm not tired. Yeah, well, that makes sense, because
And they don't have school the next day,
Right.
so they don't give
yeah, it's 2 days ago. 2 days ago it was 8 o'clock at night.
Right.
Right. So, oh man, God, it's
Anyway.
yeah.
We're on time. That's back to the. We just spent 2 minutes talking about being on time, which
Do we not?
behind.
We do this every
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
I don't understand. Like this is part of the witty repartee
Well,
that we have.
Every podcast that I've enjoyed has always been similar to this, where they're just going off the cuff, and then eventually they get to the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. I mean, I know people. I'm sure people want to hear about our lives.
Sure. Yeah. We live exciting lives.
Keep telling myself that people want to hear about our lives. I don't. Do people really want to hear about the nonsense that we talk about?
Maybe not. I think they will. I mean, look at Jason Kelsey and Travis Kelsey. They just talk about the nonsense that happens to them.
Right.
Now they're a little more popular and a little more popular.
Yeah. Thank you. It's up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you will notice the new decor of our thing, thanks to my thrifty shopping, finding us a little more professional seats besides the casting couch that we were using before.
Easy. Easy.
Hey, that can mean many things.
It can be
Depends
many
on
things.
your.
I used speaking of being canceled, I used to have a T-shirt, and I didn't know what it meant, but I used a T-shirt. It just said it was the casting couch.
I don't know what it meant.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I knew what the casting couch was, but anyway,
Yeah.
I continue to wear this around well into my 20s. So, and here I am, married today.
Yeah, and a professional.
And a
doctor.
Yeah. But, hey, Bella, put the quotation marks in.
No quotations. We're leaving those out.
We're leaving those out?
Yep.
Alright,
We're gonna actually pretend you know what you're doing.
Just
Welcome to my day on a daily basis. Show up, pretend you know what you're doing.
Yeah. You know, people it started like there's like a backlash about fake it till you make it, and I'm like, listen, it's not like people going. We're not talking about like snake oil salesmen,
Right.
We're talking about people who are professionals who sure you have all the schooling you in the world, but if you don't apply that to real life experience, then you can only get you so far. So the faking it is faking the confidence to make the decisions that you need to make on a daily basis until you get enough experience so that those decisions are based off of not only your experience but also the education that you have. So
Right.
I know that sayings kind of come and go, and sayings jump the shark, just like the jump the shark saying jump the shark. But I don't know. I'm still a fan, always a fan. Never not been a fan of faking it till you make it. I still feel like I'm faking it till I make it.
Yeah, that's the Dunning-Kruger effect we talked about before, where the smarter you get, the more experience you get, the more you realize, I don't know shit. So your confidence level tanks a little bit, even though you're smarter and better than you were before.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got to make sure that we stay in that confidence level, even if it's a fake confidence, because truly, there's a difference between faking it in general.
Yeah.
And then faking the confidence. Yeah, we get it all
Right.
the time. Yeah, absolutely. And then when all of a sudden the results start showing, and then you're like, okay, maybe I do know what I'm talking about every now and then. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, all right, cool. So, well, speaking of that, we're going to move into the topic today is sports injuries.
The worst segue ever. God.
Well, it was a timely segue instead of spending the next 2 minutes trying to figure something out.
You didn't know what I had going on. You didn't know what I had. It's fine. We're here. We're here now.
We're here.
We're
We're
here.
gonna go right into this.
We are.
So today we're talking about the top 3 sports injuries based on occurrences, not popularity, and what we can do to try to circumvent them occurring, or at least reduce the chances, the probability, possibilities, etc., of them happening. So. I'm actually gonna let you want me to lead this one, or do you want me to go follow my lead?
Yeah, I'll follow your lead because I admittedly read like 75% of your text,
Mhm.
and I missed the sports word in there, and I just did some searches for some top 3 or top most common orthopedic injuries. With that said, just
They're probably
working in the sports profession, I also worked and sought and searched for sports injuries as well, but it led me down a path of you found a source that listed the top 3 according to said source, and I'm happy to obviously we're gonna sit here and we're gonna talk about that, but I went down a couple different paths, one of which I know you just said that you were gonna start talking, but
here we are.
screw it. Surprise, I'm taking over. It's hard to classify an injury, right? You can kind of put it into groups. B, to actually fully prevent injuries. So they are. Listen, I'm definitely not saying that we shouldn't try to prepare ourselves and try to prevent injuries, because if you don't do anything at all, well, yeah, then your injury risk definitely increases. So, but these injury risk programs are like best case scenario, you can reduce injury risk, and which is loosely defined by like 40%. 40% is nothing. It's nothing to shake your head at,
No.
right? But it's the ranges are all over the place when you look at these injury reduction programs. So it's not to say to not do them and to not incorporate them into your training. It's just to say that there's a whole lot more that goes into injuries than just the physical preparedness, which we're mostly going to talk about the physical preparedness, but there are other aspects that are out of our control sometimes.
Genetic predispositions, etc.
Life stressors, so on and so forth, like external conditions, environmental conditions, so on and so forth, that we can only control so much of. And so, other people.
The nature of the sport.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can only do so much. It's not to say to not do anything, but you can only do so much. So
I
with
guess
that,
we're talking about more of the non-contact style injuries, the ones that are just,
yeah, right, non-contact injuries. But even then, so watching the Super Bowl, right? I forget his first name. Greenlaw, the 49ers
Dre.
line. Drake, not
Trey or Dre, yeah.
Anyway, was starting linebacker for the San Francisco 49ers. He was kind of celebrating a turnover on downs, or soon to be turnover on downs, and he was running onto the field, or change of possession. Regardless, it doesn't matter. He was running onto the field, and as he ran onto the field, his back foot slipped, and he went into a very quick eccentric dorsiflexion movement, which snapped his Achilles. And that's not something that you can prepare for, right? I'm unless, and I haven't heard anything, maybe unless he was having some sort of like tendonitis, tendinopathy stuff going on beforehand, and ignored it, and or like, was just trying to work through it, and maybe that made him a little more susceptible, but there's nothing that's come out from anyone acknowledging that. It was just kind of one of those free things, right? So I guarantee you that it's not that if he had done more eccentric heel raises, that would he have prevented that injury from happening. So sometimes just stuff happens.
Right.
Anyway, so I will stop talking temporarily. Please, your topic.
All right. So what I found based off of some very, very intellectual Google searches is your top three sports specific, and I'm not even saying sports specific, sports in general, I should go the other way, injuries are in really no particular order, is your knees, shoulders, and elbows. Okay, so and you think about the reality, most major sports require the use of all of those above, but most of them require all of them in one. So let's talk about baseball. You're having that. Now, I know baseball, they have a lot of hamstring injuries because of the sprint stop nature of the sport, but also let's think about your shoulders and elbows. Every person on the field throws the ball. Every person, like not just the pitcher, everybody at a high rate of speed. By the way, you look at some of the exit velocity or the velocities of the throws from shortstop, they're matching damn near what pitchers are throwing within 5 to 10 miles per hour of it. So we're talking the stress of the elbow and the shoulder there for fielders. And then you look at the velocity of center fielders throwing home for an assist. Yeah, it's pretty up there for the good ones. They're hitting the mid 90s.
You mean they're throwing it? You mean they're throwing it pretty fast? You mean like when they do like the flip after they throw it?
Right.
It's not just for show.
Correct. Yeah, it's not for most, but but yeah. So we talk about that, and of course knees. Pretty much every major sport is going to have that's going to be your top thing. I can't think of one major sport that doesn't have prevalent knee injuries.
Darts.
I said major. Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, good. We just lost all of our United Kingdom audience. Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks, Donnie.
They're drunk. Anyway, so I don't know any sober dart players, do you?
No, not at the end.
Nah, yeah, exactly. So anyway, there we are with our three there. Okay, so for us that makes pretty much sense, but maybe for you it's a new revelation. And then we go into talking about, all right, we understand, like you were saying, there's no way to completely avoid injury potential. Anything you do in the gym or in the sport, and we're not going to stay in the world, but we're going to stay in our lane here. Sports and in the gym, there's a risk as soon as you walk in. There's an inherent risk. That's why everybody has you sign waivers the second you walk in. So,
It's an inherent risk compared to sitting on the couch.
Absolutely.
Right. Just weightlifting is no more dangerous than like gymnastics. It's less than like gymnastics or other sports, right? But
For sure.
yeah, sure. I understand. I know what you're saying. I just want
to make sure you're clear to everybody.
I just want to clarify to the audience.
Dangerous thing that we're doing.
Right. Yeah.
Is there any type of movements that you do in your body? There's going to be inherent risks because there are injury potentials when something goes awry. Simple as that.
Compared to sitting
on the couch, right? There's a very little risk on that, unless you live in a sinkhole prone area. you know, or if you happen to stay home during a tornado. That's about the highest risk you're going to have, yeah, is sitting on your couch. But when we're talking about, you know, activity levels, you know, and I tell this to people that when they come in for consults, whether they're geriatric patients or high school athletes, I say, listen, my job is like an insurance agent. I'm mitigating risk as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm doing here. That's a huge part of my job is because if you get injured in the gym, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. If you get injured on the field, it's part of the game, part of the sport.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but if you get injured in the gym, somebody was not properly programming and overseeing the way they're doing it. That's simple as it is. And you've heard of these programs. I think I don't want to say anything, but I think was it Washington? It was no, I think it was Oregon. Sorry, Oregon. They had a couple of years where they had guys that were like several rhabdo athletes all in 1 year. We're talking major injuries that were happening, and they come to find out the strength conditioning program courses that were just destroying these guys. We give them no recovery, and it was the old school mentality to see how tough you are.
Yeah.
Well, sure. Now you've got guys who are having lawsuits against you because now you've potentially limited their career, their potential earnings moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
So back to the point is that we're mitigating injury and risk as much as possible while pushing the human body to different levels. And those things have to run hand in hand, or you are not a good coach. Done. Simple as that. I'll cross the line right there. Now on your end of it, when you're rehabbing someone from an injury, I know in your mind you're already prehabbing them to keep them out of your office again, because your goal is to have them not in there, especially for the same injury, but not in general. In general, not in there.
Yeah.
And using methods that you use, because I went through your methodology, starting off with, hey, we're just going to do basic movements all the way up to axial loaded weighted movements, testing limits, and that's your program starts from here and goes to there. What in your program in there is when you come in with someone with an ACL or some sort of ligament in the knee, what are you doing to prevent them from coming back in for that same thing or any other knee? What is part of your program in there? I know it's different than others, so tell me, what would you?
I mean, the biggest thing is, well, I'll try to quickly go through the whole thing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, coming off, is this post-surgical?
Let's go post-surgical just for the sake of argument here.
I mean, the beginning part of rehab is pretty straightforward. It's do some hands-on treatment, do some stretching, some mobility work, do some things to kind of get stuff firing again, some, isometric exercises, some slow, like open kinetic chain, concentric stuff. And then once we are starting to get into the weight-bearing stuff, then we gradually progress. And it's really the late stage rehab where stuff is, we get the most bang for your buck. But what I don't do is just look at the protocol from the surgeon and be like, hey, guess what? It's week 12.
You're healed.
Right. It's week 16. We can start plyometrics, and meanwhile they're still walking with a limp, and they can't even balance and perform like a barbell squat with just the barbell. So it's a combination of like, hey, like here's these protocols that are for most people, the average person. Some people will advance faster, some people will advance slower. So the biggest thing is just in a gradual manner, gradually progressing load over time, and just doing so in a controlled fashion. Because the biggest mistake that people make coming back from injury is assuming that what's called their envelope of function is the same as before, aka if you don't use it, you lose it. So meaning, or you got people who are like, well, before I got hurt, I could squat 315 for reps. And you're like, cool. That was like 3 or 4 months ago, or that was before the surgery. And if we just started to assume that, all right, well, based off of the time, things are healed, you're perfectly fine to squat 315, go for it. We have run a very high risk of overwhelming the system and potentially leading to like actual structural failure. So keeping all those things in mind, progressive overload over time, having a conversation with the patient about what's called their envelope of function, and that, hey, like, yes, I know this is what you used to do, but you've lost that, not lost it. Temporarily, it has lessened to what you can tolerate, but here's a roadmap out of it, and we can progress and program you to get there. So I guess that's the biggest thing that I do is essentially just laying out the expectations from the beginning, and making sure we kind of go in a step-by-step manner, that we don't skip steps. And then lastly,
that's where you had to deal with.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good.
What you did with me rehabbing is I wanted to skip steps because of my background, because of my knowledge. I wanted to this is where I need to be. This is where I need to be, and I think you had to do a good job of reining me in, saying, listen, you could do that, but here are the risks of setback.
Yeah, and so trust me, I'd much rather have a patient like you, who is, raring to go, where I have to kind of like control a little bit, as opposed to someone that got to kind of like poke and prod along. Because at some point, I might have a conversation with that person like, well, why did you even have the surgery if this is all like we're going to do?
Yeah, you could have had that without the surgery.
Right, we could have gotten you back here without all the necessary like, risk and the money spent and so on and so forth. But the last part I was getting to, which you kind of, you and I, we did do it together, is working on functional specific tasks. And I use that a little bit quotation marks. Basically, whatever we can strength train all day long, work on mobility all day, and balance all day long. It's going to have a limited effectiveness if we don't apply it to the specific tasks that the patient wants to do. Meaning, like for you, is you want to get back to jiu-jitsu. And so we say, all right, well, we're going to do some things, some movements, positions that force you to get into the positions you want to get to. We're going to gradually practice it. We do it in a controlled manner over time, and then, like doing things where we give you something to hang on to for balance, and then like trying to work your way into work range of motion, and then doing things without your hands, and then doing things at a slow speed, and then doing things without hands at fast speed, and so on and so forth, and then getting the reps in as well. So, that's kind of that last stage stuff to help with not only the physical preparedness, but also the mental preparedness as well.
I think that was part of my issue, was mentally like, okay, I can do this. Because I've spent so long not being able to do that post-surgery that I had to be like, okay, wait, I can actually get into this position without pain.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a concept we call graded exposure. So it's, so people have fear of injury or re-injury, fear of pain, and so they avoid certain types of movements or positions. So the biggest thing to do is, and I know it sounds kind of simplistic, but is to gradually expose them to partially that range of motion, partially that position, either in a controlled fashion, either again giving them something to hang on to for balance, for support, only doing it for a quick period of time, but then doing it over and over and over again, and gradually, incrementally working our way further into either they get the range of motion, the amount of time they need to be there, the intensity that's required, so on and so forth, many variables, to help their kind of rewire the nervous system to let them know, like, oh, hey, like, it's okay, it's safe for you to be here.
And that was what I took from your program, was the controlled aspect of it, like in a controlled environment. So I wasn't, whenever we were doing movements, I wasn't at risk of falling.
Yeah.
And now that I have that out of my mind, I'm not gonna fall. Okay, worst case scenario is I get helped up, or I grab myself, or so I can push myself a little bit further on the rehab aspect of it. And then moving into the prehab aspect of it. So we go, okay, injuries healed. How do we keep this from happening again? Or, hey, now I don't want to go through this process for anything again. So I want to go ahead and say, let's start trying to bulletproof the body a little bit more by exposing it to stressors under, once again, the controlled environment. And that way, when it meets these stressors in an uncontrolled environment, the chances of injury are much less, because it's already seen what's happening here. Great example, I know how you love to talk about Patrick Mahomes, but there is a video of him, he gets tackled low, and his knees just absolutely collapse. I know you know exactly what video I'm talking about. Any other human being, most other human beings would have been just destroyed. That would have been several ligaments in their knees. It could have been PCL, ACL, MCL, all the above.
All the L's.
Yeah, all the L's. But he got up, and they talk. I watched the show. They talked about his training and that kind of stuff. And I agree. The mobility, and I don't want to use your buddy Tom Brady and Alex Guerrero's word pliability, but the concept of,
because every time you say it,
you have to owe him.
you have to pay him
I know.
1 cent.
I know.
Yeah.
Sorry, Alex. I'll get you back. But yeah, the ability of being able to withstand that and get back up is where my end of it when I'm working with athletes is where I'm going here, because I want them stronger, faster, and better at their craft. But I also want them, for softball players, when they slide in and awkwardly catch a cleat on the base, I don't want that to result in a knee injury. I want that to result in all right, I get up, walk it off, and then, maybe I'm out a day at most. But it's, inflammation goes down and we're done. Versus season done.
Yeah.
Or when you go to, when a cleat catches in your knee, it's just one of those, we try to avoid that. No, we can't avoid it all the way. We need, like you said, green laws, freak injury, and you see some of these people that are just like high-level athletes that just no impact, no trauma, planting, done. You can't avoid it, but we want to try to. So for the average person, the weekend warrior, the softball player, the whatever, so we go, okay, let's bulletproof the joints as much as we can by exposing them to trauma under control, and that's really what resistance training is per se, is trauma under control.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Whether it's actual physical micro trauma to the muscles or the soft or the connective tissue, or if it's I guess the rewiring the nervous system to think that something that once was a painful, hurtful position is no longer, or is less of a threat.
Less of a threat.
And then that's ultimately what we're trying to accomplish with anything that we do. So I mean, one of the I don't. There's a reason we haven't listed like specific. Here are my top 5 go-to exercises for.
You won't do that,
right? Because there are. Listen, we could be here for an entire week going through all of the exercises you could potentially do for rotator cuff strength, like glenohumeral control, scapular control, blah blah blah, so on and so forth, right? What I will say is that one of my favorite things to do is I will take traditional movement patterns, right, and like a squat or a lunge, for example, and put someone's foot in a position where it is exposed to, like, for example, I do this all the time with my ankle sprains, where eventually we get to doing just like static lunges. And once we can perform a static lunge, no problem, then I'll put like their front foot on a slant board so that it's like fully inverted or fully everted or pronated, and then have them do lunges with their foot in that position so that they can, and then they get to control it, how much, how quickly they move into that position. And that's one of my kind of like the ones where I kind of bridge the gap between, basic weightlifting movements and like plyometrics balance movements, is that putting this in awkward positions, potentially even the position where their ankle's inverted, the position in which they hurt themselves, so that they can then kind of be like, oh, like I can control this, and they can kind of see it happening, that this is a position that I hurt myself in, but I'm controlling it, and I'm fine, I'm safe, I'm not hurting myself right now, there's no pain with this. Okay, all right, I guess I can handle it, I can tolerate it.
So yeah, similar concept is when you have guys that come back from ACL, and then what's the last thing they usually get back to doing? Lateral movements, right?
Mm-hmm.
Straight line movement for ACL is actually pretty quick. Static movement up and down, almost very quick, especially with the bear procedure now. I actually found out Elliot Hulsa's daughter had the bear procedure right after we talked about it last time, and 9 weeks out, she was deadlifting already with weight. So fantastic, but lateral movement's going to be your not only your physical but mental, because most times the injury occurred trying to attempt the lateral movement. So we get him in there, and then all of a sudden you say, okay, now we can perform this this lateral movement under control. Show, hey, your body is responding positively. So that way, when you're out in the field and you go to plant that, to do that lateral movement, you're not second guessing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. 100%.
Yeah, so that's okay. So back to full circle, we were talking about here, and I know I kind of took the lead on this, with just like these injuries, and we focus lower body, but we do have the shoulder protocols and the elbow protocols. The UCL, the Tommy John stuff. That I don't know. I'm torn. No pun intended. On what can be done. I think a lot of times when we're pushing the human body to make a movement that's unnatural at an extremely high level, the potential is going to be there all the time. I think a lot of it has to do with your genetic makeup. Is your soft tissue stronger genetically than, there are people that I know that have had 4 bicep tears and done less lifting than I have, and I've, knock on wood, have never torn a tendon. So is that because I got lucky? Is that because my tendon strength maybe is a little bit stronger naturally than other people? And even though I lifted more and I put more strain on them, it's stuck in there. I think it has a lot to do with that. It's a genetic predisposition more than the stressors.
I mean, I can't.
With those types of injuries where we're dealing with unnatural stuff. We're talking like lifting 800 pounds through a bicep tendon that's the size of a straw. That's.
I will say that I think that there are certain body types that are maybe built better for certain types of athletic endeavors and or weightlifting movements. So like people who have like short femurs, and maybe a smaller torso, like they can just like sit down into a squat, right? And they might doing things like Olympic weightlifting, that might be their sport of choice. Maybe they can be a catcher in baseball, and it's not an issue for them to sit down in that position all day long. Whereas you have people who have longer femurs and they kind of like have to hinge a little bit or have more like a trunk incline. Like maybe there should be more like a posterior chain type dominant type of athlete. So there are things to consider, but I don't want to dissuade anyone from trying everything. And I think the bigger picture is, or the bigger issue is usually going to be things where people just don't pay attention to their bodies.
The warning signs are there.
The warning signs are usually there.
Yeah.
People just aren't paying attention. They're not. I don't want to use the word attuned. They're just not paying attention to things, to their bodies. They're like, I'm sure I'll be just fine.
Or they're hyper focused on a goal, like I used to be, and then you ignore it on purpose.
Right, or that, right? And so usually the errors are less so with like your form necessarily, but more about like doing something too much too soon too fast, like loading into a position, like spiking in volume, getting into a position that you haven't accommodated to, you haven't worked on the mobility, and just like assuming that that's fine, I can get here. I've never tried this before with this weight over my head, but I'm sure I'll be just fine because I've done it to half that range of motion or whatever. So something along those lines is usually what I see. So I mean, is there some evidence out there for like, I think for like re-injury rates, like having a genetic, there's some evidence out there for genetic components, like between me and my little brother, we have pay for our surgeon's vacation home with the number of ACL repairs that we have, right? And if you tear an ACL on one side, so like meaning you have a sibling tears an ACL, you're like moderately have a higher risk of you tearing your ACL. If you tear an ACL on one leg, then there's the increased risk that you're going to tear it on the other leg. So they like once we kind of get past the first injury, then the rate of like re-injury definitely spikes. And again, but once again, it still kind of comes down to like people, and maybe they are ignoring their body type and they're assuming like, oh well, like I have this kyphotic spine that my mother had, my grandmother had. But sure, I can be an overhead athlete.
Sure,
I can snatch my body weight overhead without trying, or without warming up to it. I can just throw it up over my head, and so it's not to say that you can't do a snatch with a kyphotic thoracic spine, aka a flexed thoracic spine. But if you just assume you can do it and just say, oh, that looks pretty easy, that small person did it. Well, let me see if I can do it, and then you're going to run a higher risk of injury. So.
And I'll tell you, I had to deal with that because that's simply how my spine is built. So I had to really focus on my upper back strength in order to keep the rounded back from rounding further. So, you know, and this is where I was able to be successful while still having that type of build, but I understood what I was dealing with.
Right. So
thanks to a lot of people who were my mentors and specialists in the beginning saying, hey, you're gonna end up pretty jacked up, you know, if you don't, you know.
So that's there you go. So you gradually worked until you gradually got into it. So, you know, but maybe quote unquote your body type wasn't built for this sport, but over time you gradually improved mobility, improved strength, and gradually controlled the load and the movements that you wanted to do over the course of time.
I got further than I should have. I'll say
That's
this,
fine.
my body
Yeah,
type did hold me back, you know, because you look at guys like Ed Cohn who are built perfectly for the you know, lifting, that kind of stuff. Those are the guys that do it there. You know, when you get my frame and stuff like that, the way I was built, I got further than I should have, but it did ultimately hold me back.
Okay. Yeah, but again, to your point, you got further than you should have because you did it in a controlled manner.
Correct. Yeah. And overall, outside of my knees, you know, I was very fortunate in my lifting career to have very few injuries. I mean, I can't think of one guy that I've trained with longer than 10 years that doesn't have some sort of tendon tear or something. I escaped that, you know. So, you know, I ultimately paid for it, and I do believe that there's some genetic issues with my knees because my mom does have 2 replaced knees. My father also has bad knees. Now, does that mean it was? No, I just think I was starting off with a little lesser chance of survival on that.
You might have had.
I finished it off myself, for sure. But I started off with, you know.
That's fair. I'll acknowledge that, but you know, you still accomplished everything you accomplished. So, right. Cool.
All right, I think we need to go ahead and shut it down because we're running.
I mean, we didn't even get to talk to stuff about the stuff I want to talk about, but that's fine.
Well, let's, for once, so you don't get the spotlight over here. All right, so let's all cry about it, Argentina.
What was that? The spotlight.
Yeah, the spotlight. Did I say spotlight? We'll go to
Bella.
the tape. On
Bella, run back.
Yeah,
Run back.
Well,
what are you doing here?
Yeah.
I don't know.
We're gonna bring her on in a second, but
you're gonna get demoted. We're gonna cut your paycheck.
Yeah, we're going from 0 to 0. All right, so let's go ahead and start with you. Who are you, and what are you doing here? Actually, who let you in? And
well, the
doors
door is open. The front door, front door was open, and I found
business.
I found this shirt on the road somewhere, and so I just threw it on and pretended to know what I was talking about.
Not bad for pretending.
Thank you, I appreciate it. My name is Dr. Hayes Estes. I'm a doctor of physical therapy. I'm the owner of Premier Physical Therapy and Sport Performance here in the Clearwater and Palm Harbor areas. What do I like to say? You know, help athletes of any age, any ability level, get out of pain, get back in the game.
Fantastic. Yep, and he also helped me get back into my game. And I'm coming into the later stages of my rehab where I'm starting to feel the effects of the work that I did 6 months ago. So I'm enjoying that.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah.
I thought you were saying you're starting to feel the effects of the private jiu-jitsu trainer that you hired.
I do have a private jiu-jitsu trainer as well. Shout out to Rich. Nice job. We're not going to talk. We thought we were letting that go. All right. You got enough shots in on the pink shirt. All right.
I don't come on. I was on time today. I was 8 minutes early today.
Let it go. No, that means 8 minutes before we started production. I mean, you don't have to set up beforehand, right?
I thought it was Bella's job.
Yeah. Anyway, my name is Donnie. I own Strength and Performance Institute right here in Clearwater, Florida. Come on in, Bella. This is my daughter. We actually just got trained here. Come on in.
Come on
in there. Say hi.
Hey.
There you go.
Say hi right over here.
This is my 10-year-old giant right here.
It's the people that are watching.
She's an athlete of herself, so working on that. Anyway,
Good job today, Bella.
Yeah.
You're a great producer.
Yeah, sure.
Now, you just walk right in front of the camera.
Right in front of the camera. Now Joey Swole's gonna come over here and do a segment on this because we're making fun of you for walking in front of our camera. Thanks, we're getting canceled before we got started.
If we get Joey Swole to
Cancel us?
we'll get uncanceled.
We really will. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, why did you walk in front of my camera, random girl?
Don't you know we're doing?
Oh boy, that's gonna ruin the speakers on people's laptops. Anyway,
This happened, broke.
we're gonna go. We're gonna go ahead and finish this before it gets any worse. So
Too late.
we'll see you in 2 weeks. All right, go
Yeah.
ahead and push stop there.
Look at that.
Producer Bella.
You don't have to get up there, and I don't have to sit there and awkwardly look at you while someone.
Ah,
Don't speak too
get
soon.
off. Oh my god.
No, it's perfect.
Blocking.
Yeah, no, that's
Okay,
good.
it's
No,
blocking.
just shake it around a little more.
Yeah, it's blocking.
Yeah, we're done.
You're done.